And I'm reading from chapter 2. At the beginning of chapter 2, an event that you all know well, I'll be reading 1 through 11. So let's listen to the words of John. 2 days later, there was a wedding in the town of Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his followers were also invited to the wedding. When all the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no wine." Jesus answered, "Dear woman, why come to me? My time has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." In that place, there were 6 stone water jars that the Jews used in their washing ceremony. Each jar held 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled the jars to the top. Then he said to him, "Now, take some and give it to the master steward." So they took the water to the master. When he tasted it, the water had become wine. He did not know where the wine came from, but the servants who had brought the water knew. The master of the wedding called the bridegroom, and he said to him, "People always serve their best first. After the guests have been drinking a while, they serve the cheapest wine, but you have saved the best wine till now." So in Cana of Galilee, Jesus did his first miracle. There he showed his glory, and his followers believed him. Let's look at the screen.
We have no more wine.
I must see my son.
Your mother is coming.
They have no more wine.
What wilt thou have me to do for thee, that will I do. For mine hour is not yet come.
Whatsoever he saith unto you, see that ye do it.
Gather the water vessels and fill them
Fill them.
with water. And bear unto the governor of the feast.
This is the first wedding feast I have ever attended, where the best of the wine has been saved for last.
It's a wedding. People were having a great time until the stuff ran out. This morning, we're going to look again at water. If you remember last week, we dealt with water. Jesus went to the Jordan and ended up refreshed and revived with water. Interesting, right? This morning, here's the situation. And once again, he uses water to do, as our text said this morning, perform his first, and I'll say this, public miracle, which we saw and we read was not on his agenda. Interesting. This morning we begin, as we read and think and watch, to realize that this is the beginning of Jesus' earthly ministry. He now steps out and steps into the role to which his Father had called him. But not like a great prophet or a boisterous voice. He doesn't burst onto the scene and say, all right, watch this. Did you get that? No. He doesn't really want to have anything to do with it. I'm thinking that he probably was thinking, well, that's their problem. Interesting background. We're at a wedding at Cana in the hills of Galilee, pretty close to Nazareth. And we think that the wedding that we're talking about probably had to be either a distant member of Jesus' family, certainly a close friend. Why? Because his mother was invited, he was invited, and so were his friends, disciples. And the bride or the groom invited these folks, including Jesus' brothers, so that they could party down. Woo, yeah, I heard a quiet woo-hoo back there. Yeah. Now, let's take a look at marriage in our culture for a minute, folks. Marriage in our culture is an event, is it not? How many people had an event at their wedding? I got to take my glasses off. I can't see that. Try that again. There you go. Yeah. I was just looking at things like, no event for me, man. It's like, yeah, okay. And so I surmise that, and know that from family, it takes a year to plan a wedding for some people. How many people took about a year to plan a wedding? Anybody? There we go. I got a couple. Yeah, it took about a year. Some people, like 6 months these days is the bare minimum, is it not? Why? Because you can't get the hall you want. You all know those things. Or at least you have family that has gone through this. So what do you have to do? You have to start a year ahead or 6 months ahead, and you have to hustle. Why? Because there are, I wrote this down. I got to make sure I hit them all. Okay. The place, the venue, now is it called, definitely the food. I mean, we're talking caterer here, right? The DJ, you know, you do not want a bad DJ at your wedding, right? You know, some people even interview them, right, if you don't know anyone. The honeymoon getaway, the photographer, now the videographer, the invitations, the dress, and I'm not done yet, but I'll cut it short, okay? I could go on and on. And then what? You get to the venue. Notice I'm saying venue because people get married on the beach. People get married in the forest. That's a shout out to my new married peeps in the back. Yeah, hoorah. I married them in the forest. Well, do you call it a forest? No, woods. Can we call it woods? Yeah, That's Aaron and Jackie. He's like, yeah, okay. It was beautiful, by the way. It was drop dead gorgeous. That's God's natural cathedral, right? And they know that. And here they are this morning. Okay. So you not necessarily think that you're married in the church anymore. You know what? That's okay. My peeps were married in the church. God was present with us. Nonetheless, you put a whole, and I can attest for these two, put a whole lot of work into getting ready. And what? In 45 minutes? Poof! It's done. And you're happy and you're at the wedding and you're dancing and all is great. And then the bride and the groom slip away, right? They're gone after 2 or 3 hours. And then all the rest of the family and the friends, they party down, you know, as long, well, for us guys now, till at least 10 o'clock, right? Yeah. Nonetheless, in one 24-hour period, the event is most likely over. Well, let's talk about Cana, Nazareth in Galilee in Jesus' time. Get this. Are you ready? The minimum wedding celebration was 7 days. Okay, 7 days. Can you all survive for 7 days, you know. And within those 7 days are many meals and lots of food were brought in, and it was expected that the families of the bride and the groom didn't just show up on wedding day, but they kept coming intermittently throughout that week to visit with guests. I mean, when those two kids got married, I'm sure that all the families went home and slept for 3 days. That's the situation we find ourselves in this morning. How odd is it that Jesus would pick that place to reveal his first sense of power and glory and majesty? Now, some of you guys out there, because I know you're paying attention, would say, PK, he didn't want it. That wasn't his idea. It was his mom. You know, mom put him up to it. Son, what did he say? He said, woman. The NIV, which I read from you this morning, I did intentionally. New International Version says, he said, dear woman. In a lot of the other versions, it just says, woman. Now, what's that about? It's because if you read that contextually, it kind of sounds like he's rebuking his mother, right? Woman, why are you asking me? Oh, you know? But no, in Jewish culture, using the term woman ahead of addressing a woman, particularly your family, using the term woman is a term of respect. And so NIV records it as dear woman, to help you get the tone and the meaning behind what Jesus was saying. Otherwise, you read that whole context and you go, wow, Jesus was kind of cheesed off at mom. No, he wasn't. He was saying to her, dear woman, why are you asking me now? I wasn't planning on doing anything at this venue. And yet what happens? He turns and he says, go fill up the jars. Let's have a comment about context and about verbiage. Again, all the texts in this reading say stone jars. Okay? Difference. And what you saw on the screen in the video was not a stone jar, it was a pottery jar. Right? And we know that pottery was used at the tables and in the cups and whatever. It's significant that stone jars were used in this context because stone jars were holding 20 to 30 gallons of water. The stone jars were always used for purification, ritual rite in the Jewish tradition. And so there were always 6 large stone jars, so high, filled with 20 to 30 gallons, and those babies were heavy. They were not going anywhere. And so the idea is that they couldn't bring them, but they knew that he was talking about the water purification jars that were only used for washing during the rites and rituals of purification. Now, I can see this servant dude going, the stone jars? What do you want me to put in them? Put in them? Water. So he's like, well, okay, we can do that. That's what they're for. No clue. He goes, and again, they didn't go into the kitchen, turn on the tap, fill the small jars, and dump it into the big one. There must have been 15, 20 servants, people, that they grabbed to say, take these smaller vessels, go down to the well, fill them, and come back. It probably took him an hour or two to complete Jesus' task. Just saying. Interesting, as you get the cultural context interwoven at the time with the miracle that was supposed to happen. So now let's take a look back at Mary. Here's Mary. What's taking him so? I know my son's got it, because I know Mary knew who was in front of her. She knew that Jesus was the Christ at that point, was the Messiah. So, but she's still going, gee, son, this is taking a while. Couldn't you just, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so let's go on an hour or two and people are dancing and whatever, and there's no wine to be drunk. Right? So finally, I thought the video was kind of interesting. The guy just appears. Finally, I'm sure the servant's like, okay, and what does he bring him? He dips in the stone jar that we don't know. This is the interesting part. When he dips it in there, is it still water? Okay. I heard a yes out there. Yep. And he brings it to the chief steward, and as he pours, it's no big deal. We don't honestly know the moment of transformation. Does it matter? No. But the fact that matters is there was a huge transformation of water that happened. That's the point. This is about changing one thing into another. To be able to take something that you know as it is, and through the power of Jesus, through the power of God only, there was no other way that that water was going to be poured into that steward's glass without the glory and the power of Jesus' intervention. Yeah. And when it was consumed, it was changed. That's a miracle. Now, what happens? Steward goes, wow, this is really odd. I have never been at a wedding where the bridegroom has saved the best stuff till the end. Jesus just doesn't help you when he decides to perform a miracle in your life. He gives you the best, the most powerful, the most meaningful, better than you even could have expected when he answers you with everyday miracles. So let's extrapolate that out to us. I have heard people say, yep, the miracles happened back in the New Testament, and miracles happened in the Old Testament because, God came down and we got the burning bush and we've got the big numbers there. And so, but that doesn't happen today. If you see, no, Jesus is not walking around God, yeah, we see he has violent storms and tornadoes and hurricanes and whatever. And yes, we know that he does good things. But he doesn't do those same, get this, those same kind of miracles. Hello. Oh, yes, he does. You, just like the rest of the people at that feast, just don't know it. Don't think your God, your Christ, is doing nothing. And I think most of you realize that. How many people in your own life and in your own venue in your head can point to, just hands, I'm not asking for experience, can point to a time and said that only could have been the intervention of God at that time? Put them up. Put them way up. Don't be... Okay, look around. Keep them up. Keep them up. You need the exercise. I want you to turn around and look if you're in the front. Yeah. Okay. 85% of our group here this morning. And the rest of you are just waiting. Okay? Or, I hate to break it to you, my friends, you are my friends, you missed it. You missed it. Go back in your life and retrace your steps. And don't be focused on you, be focused on the intervention of a God that's watching you. And I guarantee you, some of you will find, yeah, that was it. That was it. So here we are. We are at the beginning of Jesus' ministry. And even though he seems to be prompted by his mother, he didn't have any intention of doing that. When the ask came to him, I'm sure he had to think, well, this just isn't my mother. There must be some plan that my Father has for me to do this, or I wouldn't have been asked. He's God, by the way, right? And because he was fully human, he tried to say, not now, Mom, I'm not ready yet. He fully intended to ease into his ministry, friends. And how do you know that? Go back and read the beginning of the gospel text. How many times does it say in New Testament writings that Jesus himself, after healing the lame man, said, do not tell people what you have seen here today. Right? He said that over and over again. He wasn't ready to make a big show. And then, later on, as we're going to read as we go through this winter and move our way towards Easter, it appears that he gets bolder. Well, he doesn't get bolder. He's on his own plan of salvation that says, if I bust on the scene and make this horrendous show in the crowd, can you imagine if he stood up at that wedding feast of Cana and he said, "Steward, bring me water filled from the 6 stone jars," and said, "I can help you, watch this." Sure, same event, same miracle. And what would have happened? That whole crowd probably would have been amazed. Some would have called him a trickster. You can read the whole rest of the scenario in your head. That's the kind of God you have, the one that doesn't do anything but quietly works in your life. Hear me, quietly works in your life, and sometimes somebody else has to nudge you, right? Yeah, go ahead, look deeper. Interesting. So, here we are this morning, and we end up by talking about everyday miracles, Your job this week, I would hope, is to do some reflection. The start of our 2019 ministry theme here at TAPC, I chose 3 words for 2019 through 20. Reflect, And that's where we're starting you this morning. Rejuvenate and reach out. You can reach out and change the order of those things. Rejuvenate and then reflect. But that's not what Jesus did. He reflected on the problem, was encouraged and reinvigorated to proceed and take care of the problem, and then he reached out, not in a boisterous voice, but in that quiet, still miracle of it's changed. It's something new. And it's not only going to be new in your life, it's going to be the best you have ever imagined outcome of that miracle. So in Jesus' name today, I say to you, Amen.